Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee with Conversation for Well-Being, or as I say in shorthand, coffee and conversation. Grab a drink, come and sit with me as we discuss self-care in this troubling time. Self-care often goes unnoticed, but it especially goes unnoticed when other things are happening that are stressing us out and making things difficult. I gathered with a group of coffee and conversationers from Meetup today on Zoom, and we discussed this topic. We got into several different things, and some of the points I'm going to share with you here. If you would like to join us on Meetup for a Zoom meeting, I generally will post this on meetup.com. And I have two groups. So if you look under my name, you should be able to find both groups. One is Mystery, Mystics, and Metaphysics. The other is Coffee with Conversation for Well-Being, which is more a coaching type thing. So grab a drink and join us as we discuss the importance of self-care, especially in these tough times. So what we did today was we were talking about all different types of self-care, and we were asking some of our members, what do they do? What are their favorite types of self-care? I have to tell you, the number one way to de-stress for people seems to be meditation right now. And I think a lot of people took up meditation and breath work during COVID, during this time where we did have a little bit of time to really focus on ourselves and try to make ourselves become more healthy. So we're going to talk about this in different stages. So for self-care, number one, we're going to talk about de-stressing. De-stressing is a little bit different than the other things we're going to get into, because we need to de-stress usually first and foremost. That is when we're grinding our teeth or becoming short-tempered with people. It also, we just feel tense, or we might get anxious. In order to de-stress, number one, if at all possible, one of the best ways to de-stress the body anyway is to do so with physical exertion. Whether that means having a little barbell that you just pick up and you do a few to get your blood pumping, whether it means a stationary bike or a real bike, taking a walk, taking a jog. I had panic attacks at one point. When I did so, if I was driving, I would just pull over and then run around my car 4 or 5 times. And that usually made me feel physically a little bit better. So exercise is important. And if you're going to practice self-care, regular exercise is really important. That can look like whatever you need it to look like, whether that is lifting weights or going to a gym, or if you're lazy like me, I have a stationary bike in front of my television in the living room, and when I'm watching my shows, whatever they may be, like Stranger Things or whatnot, I will jump on my bike and just kind of release some stress and tension on my bike. Second thing is to help your mind and your body process things. Number one, what I would do, and one of the big ones that what I found most of the people who came today do, is breath work. So when we talk about breath work, we're talking about deep breathing, because when you're stressed, your breathing is all at the top of your lungs. It's all right here, and it's fairly quick generally. If we want to slow ourselves down, we take a deep breath, hold it, and then release it very slowly. Let's do that again. Deep breath, as deep as you can make it, hold it, and release. And you release very slowly. You can take it in as quick as you want, hold it for a second, and then release slowly. There are all kinds of breath work. So one of the things that if you wanted to, what you could do is like go in for 5 or 7, hold for 5 or 7, and then release for 5 or 7. And that is kind of like an equilateral triangle, if you want to look at it that way. But you're taking in, holding, and releasing all with the same amount of timing. Or you could take in for 5, hold for 5, and release for 10. What we're doing there is oxygenating our system. We're also slowing down. And when we take a full breath and then release it slowly, we are cueing our body that we are safe, that everything's okay, and it's all right to relax. And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we are all right to relax. The third thing, which actually was most people's first thing, is meditation. What the heck is meditation? So many people have the wrong idea about it and believe that there's only one way to meditate. There's actually many, many, many different forms. I'd say there's almost as many different forms as there are people, because your practice can be unique to you. It's what works for you. Some people can sit in the same place with their legs crossed, doing Om, close their eyes, and be there for hours and be able to do that. I am not one of those people. Some people can take a quick 15 minutes and do breath work to begin with, and then pull in some energy, relax, and then be ready for their day or to take on whatever else. Some people need a guided meditation or a journey in order to really fully de-stress before they go on with the rest of their day. I prefer a quick 15-minute white light meditation, which is where you pull in white light energy that is pure unconditional love. You feel it go through your whole body. You feel it re-energizing you and giving back whatever it is that you're depleted, and then go on with my day. 15 minutes was always good for me. Most of my meditations are 12 to 15 minutes because I was a single mom and I worked and my life was busy. Still is, as I'm sure most of yours are. But I do know people, I have friends who it takes them about 45 minutes to fully be able to really get into a meditation and then get out of it. So you need to do what's right for you. Another form of meditation is walking meditation. I don't know if you've ever seen those like labyrinths that people make in their gardens and things. You could walk that, you could walk around the corner, you could walk back and forth in your house. I also like to meditate when I'm doing things that I'm feeling like I'm being productive. Things that are repetitive are good for meditation. Do not meditate if you're driving a car or operating a vehicle or anything like that. I tend to meditate when I'm washing dishes, when I am sweeping the floor, when I am folding clothes. Things that are repetitive are good for meditation. Meditation is about the breath work, like being able to breathe deeply, allowing your body to relax. And it's about getting out of your own head and out of your own way. Does your mind have to be completely blank for meditation? It does not. It does not. That's the most simple answer. And some people will meditate better to music, some people to words, some people to sounds. I like the ticking of a clock. Or you might want to focus on something. One of the things you may want to focus on and to help you de-stress are different types of gemstones. So far as meditation, I have meditations up that you can try here on YouTube and on Facebook in different places. And I also have a lot of different gemstone classes that I've done over the years that are up that you can see. For this, if we're trying to de-stress and like calm ourselves down, we want to look for stones that are soothing to us, that either look soothing or feel appealing, or something that we can meditate into. So number one, this is a rose quartz. I don't know if you could tell so much on this, so you can see how pink it is. He's got a boo-boo. So rose quartz is a pink quartz, and it is very soothing. It is a feminine quartz. And feminine quartz is usually more soothing, it's calming, it's more healing. What is the difference between feminine quartz and masculine quartz? Feminine quartz is generally like this, where it's more, not necessarily smoky, but it's not as see-through. Clear quartz is clear. Whereas, and that's the more masculine. Now, this is considered clear quartz also, although this is obviously not very clear. It does not have inclusions in it, however. That is quartz through and through, but it's like a snowy type of quartz. When you have this kind of quartz, if you are used to feeling the energies of different gemstones, it feels more soothing. Regular clear quartz is more projected. That's more about doing. This is more about calming and healing. Then I have, like, you use whatever you want. I love this stone because it reminds me of the beach and the ocean. It's a wonderful jasper. And it is just the right size for my palm. There are stones that are called palm stones, of which I have none up here at the moment. But trust me, there's a palm stone and it fits in your palm, and it feels very soothing just to hold it and to hold on to it and rub it and so on and so forth. And you could use all different kinds of stones, and you could use them in different ways. So you may have a stone like I have this one that has this perfect notch where my thumb fits in, so that when I'm anxious or if I'm thinking hard, then I have my thumb, I can just, rub it and it makes me feel better. There are stones called worry stones that actually have an indentation for your thumb to ride in, so to speak. And I could go on all day. I'm sure I have several videos up about stones that are good for relaxation and to help you be more calm. This is called flower agate, and that's also a good one. And when you have stones like this, like if you look at it, so there's two things in this stone that make it interesting for you to focus on. One is there's so much going on there. Let me see if I can get that to, there's a lot going on there. So there's an inclusion, you could see through part of it. It's got these different colors and swirls. And then it also has this, and what that's called is a window. So you can meditate on that window and pretend to project yourself into that window and imagine what it's like to sit in the stone and in that energy. All those kind of things are very useful. And you might have a favorite color that you use, or a favorite type of stone, or a favorite feel. And all of this can help you de-stress. We also talked about things like laughter. When your blood pressure is high, or things like that, I'm not a doctor, I know this from experience, but when you're highly stressed, to laugh helps alleviate that stress. And that's why some people will laugh at times that are very inappropriate. And it's because they have so much stress building up and tension in their body that the way to release that is by laughing. I have been in the hospital with a pressure cuff on me, like very stressed out about something. And then something happens that makes me laugh, and a good belly laugh immediately will pull my blood pressure down to where it's more manageable. I don't generally have high blood pressure, but it's a good example because I had a cuff on me that was taking my blood pressure every so many minutes. Laughter is excellent. Make sure that if you're going to use laughter as the best medicine, is to have things that are your go-to. One of my go-tos is there's an internet show from Rooster Teeth called Red versus Blue. It's been on for a really long time. It is really like 12-year-old boy humor, and then it gets into some other deep stuff as the show goes on. But that is my go-to if I'm really not feeling good, or if I really need to laugh. That's a good show for me to get into because it will pull me out of whatever I'm thinking about or whatever I'm obsessing on at that time. During times like this, we will tend to do one of two things or both at the same time. So the first is to focus on the past, but before it was like this, or I wish we could go back to that, or I want it to be that way again, or I expect the future to be the same as my past. That's not happening right now. That is depression back there. When you're reaching backwards and you're not allowing yourself to move forward and you're not allowing yourself in the now, there's a lot of depression there. That type of thinking, if only, or what if, or if I had only done this, or I'd only done that, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago. None of that is helpful at all. It's okay to look at things and see how can I do things differently moving forward. But if we ponder and ruminate on things in our past, it does nothing but pull us backwards. By the same token, if we're so worried about the future that we're just constantly what if, and putting everything, well, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and we're not in the now, that causes anxiety. That's also not helpful. How do we stay in the now and yet be prepared for what may come? How do you stay in the now and prepare for what can come? When you find your mind going off in every direction and you can feel the tension coming in your body, what you want to do is take a nice deep breath, like we said earlier, release it slowly. You do this 4 or 5 times and really focus on your breath and how your body is feeling, especially as it starts to relax and feel better. That will snap you into the now. Because in order to breathe and recognize that you're breathing, you have to be here. You can't be back there and you can't be up there. You got to be here. And this is where we want to be, because this is the only time and place that we can do anything. So if we know things are coming up that are stressing us out, can we deal with them? Is it something we could do something about, or is it something that out of our control, out of our hands? If it's something we could do something about, then plan it, get ready for it, set it up, and let it go. And then when you come to it, you deal with it. So you're prepared for the future, but you're taking care of it now. You're in the now, so that you can focus. We have to remember that we are more than just our physical bodies. We're more than just our mind. We are the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. And all those 4 parts of us need to be in alignment and working well for us to work well and to move into the future in such a way as we find stability. Right now, things have been difficult. The past couple of years, things have been very difficult. And moving forward, I don't see them getting much easier, if at all, for a while. So we need to figure out, like, what do we need to do now? So when we talk about self-care, the first part of that is recognizing the different parts of ourselves. And then if we start on the physical, mental, emotional, and then spiritual side, we can bring everything into alignment by doing simple things like meditation, yoga, exercise, and breathing properly. Whenever you feel yourself starting to get tense, if you start grinding your teeth, if you start feeling your shoulders start going up, roll your shoulders back, take a deep breath, let it out slowly. It's always a good way to begin. And it's not something that's going to interrupt anything else that's going on around you necessarily. We practice self-care so that we can handle whatever the universe is putting in front of us, or whatever is in front of us and around us, depending on whatever your belief system is. It doesn't really matter. We all have these components. We all have these different parts of us that we need to allow to breathe. So the physical breathing is the easiest part. When we talk about self-care, that often comes up when we are at the end of our rope, when we are so distraught and so depleted that we end up in the hospital, or we're exhausted, we oversleep, something happens to bring it to our attention that we can go no further. We don't want it to get that far. We want to have regular self-care as part of our routine. One of the things you could do is create a rhythm by doing the same thing every day. Not necessarily throughout the day, but maybe you start every morning by maybe getting up 15 or 20 minutes before anybody else in the house, making yourself a nice cup of tea or coffee and sitting there in the quiet and just deep breathing and relaxing. That will set your day. You may want to do that right before bed. Not the coffee though. Coffee's not good right before bed. And pay attention. We are so busy surviving that we're not paying attention to ourselves. All of this. And all of this is not just the physical. It's not just the mental, but it's also the emotional and the spiritual. So how do we do that? Well, when you meditate, or if you're journaling or going through and taking out 10 or 15 minutes a day to really focus on all of you, you may see some things. Our emotions are very important. One of the other de-stressors, and also something to make us feel good, was gratitude. If we look at our lives and we figure out, what do we have to be grateful for? I have a roof over my head. I have food in my tummy most of the time. I have a car that's paid off. I have a cat who loves me. Whatever it is that you have that you can be grateful for, make a checklist. Think about it often. Realize that that's not necessarily always going to be there. It may change. You might have to move. You may need to get a new cat. Maybe your cat runs away, or God forbid something happens to her. She's just getting the eye. But you have to allow your emotions. One of the things we do when we're in troubling times like this, where there's so much stress around us and there's so much around us that we cannot change, or that takes a long time to change, that it just stretches us out, is we need to come back within and focus within. How am I feeling? You don't necessarily have to get into the whys right away. How am I feeling? What am I feeling? And it's okay to allow yourself to feel crappy. It's okay to allow yourself those moments, those hours, those days, might be a week, where you really don't have the motivation and you really don't feel good and you really just want to cry. A good, ugly cry is good every so often. It helps you release all these different emotions, and physically it's good for you. But in order to be able to release an emotion or release tension, we have to acknowledge that it's there. And that's a problem for a lot of people in our society, because we're so busy trying to avoid ourselves and each other that we're not paying attention. In order to truly practice self-care, you need to pay attention to you. It's not about everybody else. It's not about everything that's going on around you. It's about what's happening in here. What's happening emotionally? What are you telling yourself? One of the things that we talked about is called cognitive reframe. What the heck is that? That is looking at something, listening to yourself talk, and if you're talking in a negative way about something, try to talk more kindly. Try to change what you're saying to make it more objective, and if anything, optimistic instead of pessimistic. So for instance, you're at a job, you're not really sure about this job, maybe you just started working it, and then you start going into a spiral of, oh, I hate this job, I want to get out of here, I need something else. That's not helpful. That's not going to help you find something else. It's not going to help you feel good. It's not going to help you move forward. And it's shifting your energy so that you're like a sad sack. Nobody wants to be around that. So instead of doing that, cognitively look at it. How am I feeling? Okay, so I'm not really loving it here. Is there anything I can change that'll help me like it better? Is there anything that I can do? Maybe this isn't a good fit for me. Maybe I do need to look for something else. Well, maybe I need to look forward to something and still do the best job I can do here. These are things that you need to really look at and be willing to unpack and figure out, because maybe you don't like the job because you think nobody likes you, and that's not really true. Maybe somebody said something to you and you were on your last nerve, and that just blew up in you. Not anything that you said anything to them, not that you expressed this, oh, you just sunk it in and I don't like this place. Nobody likes me. So to unpack that and to see what's good here. And is this true? Always a good question. Is this true? And oftentimes it's not. It's an assumption. It's something you painted onto somebody else or painted onto something. And once you recognize that you're projecting, only once you recognize it, can you do something with it. So be totally honest with yourself. Be totally authentic with you. That is extremely important to self-care. So we talk about different ways to wind down. A lot of people use alcohol to wind down, which is okay every once in a while, but not good if it's on a nightly basis or if it's all the time, because that's a crutch that you're not always going to have, or that can become deadly over time. So you don't want to become an alcoholic. And most people say, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just drinking 2 or 3 beers every night. Then it's 4 beers. Then, well, I need a beer to go to sleep. I can't go to sleep unless I have the beer. It's like, those are all signs that you're becoming dependent on something. You don't want to do that. You want to be dependent on you. Some people need, excuse me, help falling asleep. They may have pain or different things like that. I'm not a doctor. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about not getting dependent on substances that will be harmful to you in the long run. And as I said, if you have 2 glasses of wine every once in a while, not a big deal. 2 glasses of wine every night might be a problem. So once we unwind, then we can look at our emotions. We can acknowledge them. We can feel them, and we can let them go. And then upon doing that, then we move on to the next step, which is feeling good. How do you make yourself feel good? I thought somebody was going to say a bubble bath or a shower with, like, fragrant soaps or something. Nobody said any of that, but I'm going to say it. I think taking a bath is awesome. Swimming is a big one, because then you get the water, and sometimes you'll be outside, you'll get the sun, maybe you'll be around people. There's several different aspects to that can be helpful. But feeling good also comes with being grateful for what you have, to really put your head up and look around. What are you grateful for today? Another really good one that came out in our discussion was helping others. You feel good when you do good. So if you make it a plan that every day you're going to have your one random act of kindness, and you look for, where can you help somebody? How can I be kinder today? Maybe when that guy cuts me off in traffic, I won't freak out and call names and honk at him. I'll just say, okay, he's in a rush. I'm not. Things like that. Doing good for other people is something that can really make you feel good. It is something that can really help you to do better and feel better. Because when we help one another, then that feeds our spirit as well as our emotional body and our physical body. We need physical touch in our lives. Or even if it isn't physical touch, it's connection. So maybe you call an old friend and you see how things are going. Now, during this period of time, the other thing that we need to look at during troubling times, especially when we are on overload or you're in survival mode, we want to pull ourselves out of that and really look around ourselves and see, what am I surrounding myself with or by that I don't need or that's not serving my better health? Things like people who drain you, negative Nellies, people who blame everybody else and never take responsibility for what they have done or are doing. When we look around ourselves and we say, oh, every time I talk to that person, I have no energy once I'm done talking to them. Or I really don't like going out with this group of friends because they all drink too much every time we go out. You can have a conversation and say, hey guys, maybe we should just go to the movies or something that does not involve drinking and see how we get along. Or you may not want to spend as much time with those people or with that person. Surround yourself with people who listen and are uplifting. Relationships are about give and take. If they're constantly taking, even if it's you who's always taking, you need to look at that. Is that really what you want to be? Is that really where you want to be? I mean, there are times in relationships where you're the taker, and there's other times where you're the giver, hopefully. But most relationships are back and forth and need to remain a back and forth if they are to be healthy. The other things are like, what are you doing that don't bring you joy, that you're spending time doing that you don't really need to do? You have to do laundry. You have to clean your house. So no, that's not on the table. You can make it more fun. Like you could put on your favorite music and clean the house and dance around. Or you can make it a game if you have kids and see who could pick up their room the fastest or who could dust the best. And you do different things like that to make it fun and exciting for you and the people around you. Do you get out in nature? Do you see the sun? Getting out in nature is very grounding. That's a great part of self-care. Whether you're on a beach or you're in the mountains or you're in a forest or you're just on your lawn with your feet in the grass. Being around green with the blue sky above you, fluffy white clouds, beautiful golden sunlight, any of this that you can get is very uplifting, not just for you physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. There have actually been studies that show that if you have green in your view when you're working in an office, that you are more efficient. Who'd have known? Who'd have thunk it? It's a great thing, though. God gave us a lot of things that are pretty awesome, that are good for self-care. So why do we need to practice this? Especially right now. We always need to practice it. I don't want anybody to get the idea that there's a time in your life where you don't have to practice self-care. You always do, because you cannot do anything or move further if your cup is empty. If you're depleted, you're not good to anybody, least of all yourself. And when we become depleted emotionally, when we become depleted mentally and spiritually, we will become depleted physically. And eventually we will get sick. You may have panic attacks. It could be high blood pressure. It could be generalized anxiety, depression. It could show up in all these different ways. And it's your body, your mind, your emotions, and your spirit telling you, we need to focus on us right now. We need self-care. So you need to figure out what works for you. What makes you laugh? What makes you want to dance? What makes you smile? Where is your joy? For so many people, they've lost their joy and they need to go find it. And how do you find it? You find it in different things. You figure it out. You read a good book. You listen to music that's upbeat, not screaming music, not depressing music, but upbeat music. You take a walk, you do exercise, you start moving. Even if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of mobility, there are chair exercises, there are breathing exercises, there are things that you could do just with your arms, there are things you could do just with your legs as you're sitting. There are so many different ways to take care of yourself. You cannot wait for someone else to do it for you. If you don't care about you, no one else will either. Just be aware of that. It's nobody else's job but your own. So we're going to wrap up. What is self-care? It is making sure that on all levels, you are feeding yourself. You are feeding your soul. You are feeding your intellect. You're feeding your emotions, and you're feeding your body with good things. Why do we need to practice it? Without it, we will have a lot of troubles moving forward, and it can create a great deal of physical and mental unhealth. And how do you practice it? You need to figure out what works for you. And there's all different levels of it, and it may not be the same thing all the time. Some days you may want to listen to music. Other days you may want to play a game or watch a movie with somebody. It's all right to experiment, and it's actually excellent to experiment and to change things up as you need to. You don't want to be so strict and narrow-minded that you're missing out on things. So I am Relationship Empowerment Coach GeralynStJoseph. You can find me online. Please subscribe. And if you'd like to join our groups and our discussions, come over to meetup.com and look for us at Coffee with Conversation for Well-Being. Thank you so much for helping us out today. And please, if you're in the mood, find some of my meditations and try those out. Most of my meditations are pretty quick, so they don't take a whole lot of time. They're pretty easy, and I highly recommend if you need to relax. Blessings.